Hello everyone, Prince Dabslot here, and today I'm going to be talking about the excellent scenario, Ladybug Ladybug, Fly Away Home, and how I ran it for Delta Green. Originally, this was a scenario that came out in the Things We Leave Behind compendium for Call of Cthulhu, set in modern day with detectives, very true detective style, but I chose to insert it into my Delta Green campaign, and I came away with some very notable differences from how it's written and how your agents will react to things being Delta Green agents. So without too much further ado, we're going to hop right into the scenario and all the things that I changed up. So first off, some general advice. If you don't have it already, there is a free resource pack for this book found on DriveThruRPG, link in the comments below, but this will have all the colored maps you need and some additional information. This was a huge asset for running it in general, so I recommend if you're running the scenario, take a look at this asset pack and everything it offers because it will come in handy. And some general organization notes. This scenario and the way Call of Cthulhu scenarios are laid out are a little more textbooky, I found, than the kind of prose purple writing of Delta Green. So this was a huge one. I recommend going through and highlighting what you need, making tabs if you need it. This was a tough one with a lot of flipping, and there's a lot of clues hidden in some big walls of texts. So if you're going to write in your book and highlight and treat it like a textbook, this is definitely the scenario for it. In addition to prep for the scenario, I also converted all the stat blocks from COC into Delta Green, which was pretty easy. I did this a little bit ago when I wasn't as knowledgeable about Delta Green, so these definitely use a little bit of editing as you see fit. But, Lucy Bates, I gave a stat block, which ended up being my agent, actually, so I ended up using it, along with Lindsay Peel and all the Suicide Angel cultists, the Hunting Horror I took from the DM guide, along with Passover Angel and all the exploding bombs and stuff, which is huge. I mean, that's huge lethality right there. Car bomb lethality, 60%. Woo! Hope your agents don't run into that. I also used the book The Grand Grimoire of Cthulhu Mythos Magic, which is a really cool book of spells, and I gave the priest in Nyarlathotep a lot of spells from here. For example, like the turning bones into and getting them wrapped around and turning them into jelly and knotting them up. I gave that from here, which was really cool, along with some ones about like bugs exploding from skin. This is just a really neat book of spells that are evil, and I love this book. It's super fun. I mean, inserting spells, I know it's a no-no for agents to use, but man, it's fun to watch one go, pick one up and go down that spiral. So additionally, I let them learn those spells from stealing the priest's, special Bible that had a lot of them written in the guidelines and stuff. So I love this book a lot, but here's all the stat blocks for you. So go ahead and use them or edit them as you see fit. So running this initially, I figured I would just ad-lib all the Delta Green aspects of the scenario. I would just run it as normal and see how my agents reacted to being Delta Green agents versus Call of Cthulhu, kind of unaware police officers being kind of keyed in agents right now. And it was awesome. It really worked out well, but I definitely had to ad-lib quite a bit, add a little more of that tradecraft element that Delta Green has, including a green box. So would definitely recommend running this scenario, but be prepared for your agents to be very much more keyed in to what is going on initially versus this big reveal that the priest is evil and doing all this stuff. I mean, they kind of figured right away that, something's got to be up. We got to stop this guy, but we got to play it by the rules. And speaking of play it by the rules, this is where I had a very unique experience where I actually had two Delta Green agents, two Delta Green players who were used to playing Delta Green, and this was inserted in their campaign. And I had a friend who wanted to get more into RPGs, so I brought him along as the FBI lead for this that the agents were working underneath, and he wasn't aware that Delta Green was a supernatural game. He thought it was just a cop thriller, which is why I told him. Really, really cool experience as the other agents had to tiptoe around of like, when do we want to read this person in? And I had the FBI lead be very strict about, you need warrants, you need all this official stuff to go forward with their investigation versus just letting my agents run wild and go crazy. So it was really fun, and it was a very unique experience for running Delta Green when two physical players are like tiptoeing around another third player who's kind of aware that there's something more going on. There's another layer to this that he's not a part of. So if you have a way to swing that, I would absolutely recommend it. And it's a good way of keeping your agents on track for, using using wiretaps and all the tradecraft stuff. They can't just waltz in and try and murder people. They shouldn't be doing that anyway. As far as Delta Green, they should be being more stealthy about it. But it definitely kept them on the straight and narrow a little bit longer than they would have initially. Someone on Reddit has made this fantastic handout, and this is what I actually had the resident FBI agent read off to the other players. It's basically an incident report of everything that's going on. It's all the intro stuff you're going to read with everything that's been going on. The fact she's diabetic and she has some health issues going on and she needs her special medicine, and about the Church of Belfour agent. This was an incredible handout, looked official, and it was really cool to have one player present it to the others. So again, I'll link this below. Definitely use this if you can. This was huge and really great and set the tempo and the tone. Someone also made a website. This is some of the coolest stuff ever. I love this website. It was a thrill to watch my players explore it. There's some great links in here all about the sermons and how they're all, U.S. government, and they're all over it. Excellent stuff here. And your players will take real world time to dig through this and look through Satan's control of the U.S. government. This is fantastic. So if you can insert this in any way, absolutely. Again, I didn't make these frogs count as the raining frogs on the apocalypse. I definitely just had frogs get swept up by a storm and dumped. But this is a huge handout, and I've never seen anything like it. Incredible work. So thank you to who made this. This is awesome. So speaking on the plagues, I know in the Seth Sorkowski video, he says to, ramp them up. And there are a few ones to do that, but honestly, my agents were so keyed into what was going on that it was worth keeping low key. In fact, I had the first one, be the fact that he shot himself with the blood in the fish tank as the module recommends, but I also had one of my agents who was a biologist already in the area investigating a red tide outbreak, which is very unusual on the Great Lakes. And that was a great oh crap moment. It already happened when they realized and started counting them. It was like a game where my agents were super keyed in and were like, okay, what's the next one going to happen? What's the next one going to happen? So it wasn't really an issue of them like missing. And once they, realized the religious themes, which should be pretty clear once the priest comes in and what's going on here. It's the mummy. Like they're going to love it. So definitely recommend keeping those lower key than you might think, because if you're running this for Delta Green and your agents are already in this system and in the know and in the shit, they're going to be all over it. So given that I'm going to focus on the Delta Greening of this scenario versus the Call of Cthulhu way of running it, a lot of this runs exactly as written really well. There's some really good clues in here. There's some really good rolls. So I believe in you able to run this as written. One thing that is going to be happening is your agents are going to be trying, my agents tried to put wiretaps, which I let them do, to the Belfour Church, and one of my agents actually tried to get into the church, which succeeded with some great charisma rolls, some great religion occult rolls, to get the Belfours a little more on their side and hide that they're not the agent. They hid from the FBI screenings with them and the interviews, and they planned from the beginning I'm going to be the mole in this church. And it was so well planned out and so well played that I gave it to them. And so they definitely got more keyed in about the Belfours, being nefarious, the Passover of the Black Wind and Nyarlathotep. This isn't the first time they've seen Nyarlathotep being involved, so it was a good moment, but your agents will try and do that sort of tradecraft. So you should be prepared for what they are going to hear, what the secret conversations they're going to be a part of, and also let them know, if they pull this for secret conversations and it wasn't part of a warrant, wasn't proper, they can't go to the police with it. They just recorded this person. They don't have the proper materials, going to get tossed out in court, which my lead FBI agent was very keen on. So make sure they don't just get away with, oh yeah, we're going to hear them talk about this and that, and we're going to arrest them right away. No, if they want to arrest them and do the official thing, they got to go through proper channels. But if they're just looking to down and dirty, take care of this guy, take care of his church, then yeah, let them go ahead, place wiretaps, get in the scene, do what they want. Additionally, because it was fun, I also dressed up as a priest for the scenario. Because when else are you going to get the excuse to walk around in a priest collar and act all godly? And I had a physical Bible with me that I was thumping and made sure I had bookmarked to the proper pages so I could rip quotes directly out of. But dressing up as a priest with the glasses and everything was awesome. As soon as I entered the room with it, my agents, were more keyed in that something religious is going on. But it really set the tone of this annoying character that is going to be here all the time. And it was like when I wasn't the priest, when I was just being a GM, glasses off. And when I was the priest, it was glasses on, straighten up, book there, get a little high and mighty on myself. Because this character is very important. This character and the wife, very, very important you play this well. You don't want to play them so overtly creepy and evil that your agents are going to be like, okay, there's baddie number one, huge problem. I mean, he legitimately cares for his daughter, and he just wanted to be kind of weird in the way that like some super, religious people are just naturally kind of off-putting, and especially that tie this into modern times. I made him very, very MAGA, very Trump. I had him go on Alex Jones for an interview when he got picking up steam, and he was just this constant rotating presence in my agents' lives throughout the scenario. He was always just one step behind them or ahead of them. He was always there when they didn't want him to be. He is a good floating NPC and just shove him in wherever. But again, he legitimately cares for his daughter. He's not really trying to impede the agents that much other than just like be around and watch what they're doing, which, is impeding them in Delta Green world. But very fun. If you can dress up like this, it will shock your players and really get you into character. So speaking a little bit on the church as well, there's a recommendation in this book to, you can tie them into any mythos themed corporation as they go through the tax records. And I tied them into March, as I like March as this like overarching capitalistic mythos entity that exists and is always fiddling where they don't. And it's just a good way of introducing the organization both for now and for future Delta Green games, because remember, your agents should always be excited to find out more, whether that's their current characters, future characters, or the next campaign you're going to do 2 years down the line. Your agents should always be aware that they are just little spiders running along one single strand of this huge overarching conspiracy. And working in this March Corporation, then it tied in again when they heard about an observer effect. So you should always be looking for angles to tie in that your agents just realize they've just seen the pinky toe of this great entity that is so much larger and so much more involved than they ever think it was. I didn't get the chance to do this, but if you want to, the Labyrinth has a fantastic, another religious cult you could probably replace the ones in this book with, or have this scenario be the capstone of this organization. It's called the Sowers. They're another like poisoned religious cult that I think really has some interesting stuff going on that you could absolutely craft a campaign around and have Ladybug Ladybug be the capstone top tier end of this cult scenario, because there's some really interesting stuff going on here and it's fantastically written. So if you're looking for even just inspiration on how to run, a Christian cult that's up to some nefarious stuff, possibly without their knowledge that they're up to some nefarious stuff, this is it. I definitely take a look. This book is excellent. I would absolutely recommend tying anything in here. I also made George Lewiston a ex-outlaw. So the program which my agents were under weren't really aware of his duties, but I gave some old, he had a footlocker in his house, much like Clyde Baugman, where he had like checked up repeatedly on this cult that he's seen in his cowboy days, and now he used to be an outlaw, kind of in and out over the outlaw circuit. And it was a good way to just like tie in the outlaw plot that I had brewing in the background in home scenes in between. I think we inserted some of that in Music from a Darkened Room as well. It was just a good way to follow up and crank the idea home that there are two Delta Greens out there. And which side are you on? Are you on the good one or are you on the bad one? Is there such a thing? Probably not. So that was a really cool way to tie in with George, and it's pretty easy to do. Just ad-lib some stuff about some outlaw files he has hidden under his desk. And, he's got them hidden well. He's not a newbie at this. So definitely with some search rolls or just some time spent. A way I like to do a lot of like search rolls and stuff is not just roll search, you find something or you don't. I use it a lot of a metric of time, as in where if they succeed at the search roll, it only takes them 30 minutes. If they don't succeed, it takes them an hour. If it's a fumble, it takes them 2. If they critical success, it takes them 10 minutes, for example. And that's just a way I like to do, because a lot of times in this scenario and in Delta Green, there's a lot of clues locked behind rolls. And in my opinion, if they're not under pressure and they have the right percentage, they just get it. If they don't, or you still want to have them roll for it, it's all about that time pressure, because time pressure is so key to the Delta Green experience. In this scenario, they do not want to be burning unused time here and there. Another major difference you're likely to run into when it comes to Ladybug Ladybug Fly Away Home for your Delta Green agents is they are going to believe Lindsay. This isn't going to be, oh, she's crazy, oh, she's losing it, kind of like it implies in the book that, you know, she's kind of like the agents should just the police should just be aware of what's going on. Maybe one of them will see the Passover angel in the clouds, maybe, but with this one, agents were like, yep, haunting horror, yep, we've seen that before, yep, we've done victim of the art, yep, we've seen these things, hey, you want to let us in? And they had some great critical success rolls for persuasion and getting her to believe them, and they were just really convincing and really heartfelt. Of course, that's the time when the priest shows up and make him more of that menacing, driving around threat, but they didn't want to call in the SWAT team, they didn't want to call in FBI. I was really envisioning in my head this like huge standoff that was going to be just thrilling and crazy and intense, and it still was that, but it felt different because they much very much said, yep, you're on your side, we believe you, the priest is evil, church is crazy, let's go take him out. And it was still a great moment when they, took the girl to safety, and they were driving away to the countryside out to a green box that they contacted their handler to pull for them, which, reminder, they have the whole system in Delta Green about pulling resources and, major expenses, minor expenses, all that stuff. And I made one of them a green box, a safe space, possibly with some supplies. And on their drive over there, car dies in the middle of nowhere. It's pitch black, darkness outside. That's when the thing swoops down and, like a tin can rips off the roof of the car, takes Lindsay and flies away while my agents all, grab the girl and fled as far as they can. So that was a huge, awesome scene to have the hunting horse still come in later. So if you can swing it that way, do it. But your agents will likely be kind of keyed in that she's correct. She's not crazy, and they want to help her out. So, but it's still a great way to show her that things are escalating. Also keep in mind during this whole hotel assault scene is that there are going to be cameras. Like the hotel has cameras. So they actually took the time to go in and distract the front desk guard, use their position as the FBI to get in, say, hi, we need to see some footage, and stealthily disabled the cameras remotely using some computer science skills. Worked out really well, but just keep in mind that if they're not careful about these things, they're going to be seen on camera taking the most wanted girl in the country right now. So that's something they should be careful with, and you should punish them if they're not. Now, what they do with Lindsay after they rescue her is really up to your agents and up to you and however you want to play it out. My agents, knew they needed to keep her away. They also wanted to keep her out of the official spotlight and not let, the FBI know or the police know that they picked her up and that they rescued her. So one of my agents used the system of expenses. I made it like a major expense to call in a bond and be, I think his wife, and be like, you need to watch this kid. Like, I know she's all over the news. I know but you trust me, right? I'm your husband. You need to watch this kid and keep her out of sight, out of mind, keep her safe. We've got the medicine for her. And it cost basically the entire bond, ruined the marriage, as all Delta Green things go. And even though, it felt a little bit like, oh, they took her out of the limelight, she's a great source of tension to use. If you want to have her be kidnapped again, then go for it or something like that. But my agent was willing to sacrifice everything with his relationship with his family and his wife. And it hurt all of them, cost them a ton of bonds. So it felt earned to me. So that's how I had them take care of Lindsay. So another thing I used when they requested a green box and they succeeded at the roles needed to find one nearby is this green box generator, which I'm assuming is made by a fan. It's really, really cool. You can use it in a pinch just to spit out some weapons. Obviously, some of the stuff you're not going to want to use, and so you're just going to want to curate it a little bit. But it's really cool to have this thing that just generates a bunch of weird stuff. And again, green boxes are a way for you to insert story items. So if you have something like you want to insert more stuff about the Outlaws, then maybe have some outlaw research find in there. If you want to insert more stuff about Nyarlathotep or Azathoth or whatever, wherever you think your agents will want to go in their campaign, because Delta Green campaigns are built brick by horrible brick, and they're held together by glue. This is something to use. So remember, this is for you to play around with, but I use one of these and it generates some really cool stuff relating to Azathoth, which was their next, observer effect after they did Star Chamber. So definitely don't be afraid to give them a green box. Green boxes are fun. Green boxes are such a cool aspect of Delta Green, and they're definitely going to want to look for one. One thing I could not get my agents to do was assault the compound. I had it all in my head that I was a car bomb, such a cool moment, explosions. Like, you as a GM, you're going to want these, hype moments. and I could not get them to do it. They spent, real-time hours trying to convince this cult to get outside, and ultimately they succeeded, as the one agent that had inserted themselves into this church used the connections and the goodwill of the priest that he earned to drag the cult out with the daughter as bait. Once it became clear my agents were not going to assault this compound, which, honestly, good decision, because it's an extremely deadly assault, they baited out with the daughter, as I said, and they set up a kill box. One of them was very good at military science. They had a lot of firearms roles between them, a lot of firearms skills between them. So they set up this kill box where the one agent was like, oh, hey, I found your daughter. Let's get her back. I know you don't want the FBI involved. You don't want them back. Let's just, I care about you as a father and as a mother, and let's just get you reunited. And, he showed up with his crew. He showed up with his crew of vans ready to go, some weapons, and it was a tough fight. When the fight broke out, I also had the priest start casting spells, given that he had the Nyarlathotep bone spell as well. And additionally, because I wanted a cool ending, I had him start summoning Nyarlathotep from the ground, even ahead of time, just as he stabbed another one of his soldiers. It gave his life up as a willing sacrifice to summon Nyarlathotep, and they only had a round or two to take out the priest before Nyarlathotep appeared. And if Nyarlathotep appeared, then he was just going to start casting spells and blasting people. So maybe a little more action orientated than you imagine is the usual Delta Green, but it was still a thrilling ending, especially for a group that was playing it super safe and was not willing to risk themselves unnecessarily. It was still really cool to see Nyarlathotep, start dragging himself from the void in the ground as he appeared, and then be like, we need to kill this priest this round or else we are dead. And they succeeded. It was lucky. They had some crazy shotgun rolls. They did really, really well. And one of them started learning the spells afterwards. But that was a really cool way of ending this that came about just because they were Delta Green agents. And that's going to be it for Ladybug Fly Away Home. This could be an excellent one to either introduce your team to Delta Green with, as, now they've seen too much and Delta Green steps in and takes them over as friendlies and then makes them full-time agents. Or you can do what I did and insert it into a campaign. It'll just play a little bit differently than is written. But absolutely fantastic scenario. One of my favorites. A lot of the scenarios in this book are really cool anyway, so it's worth reading. But this was an excellent, true detective, gritty style modern Call of Cthulhu scenario otherwise. And I found that it meshed perfectly with Delta Green, as many recommend. Would absolutely recommend shoving this in anywhere you can. Thrilling, edgy, touching. Can't say enough good things about it. One of my favorites I ran in my campaign. So that's about it. Thanks, everybody. As always, I appreciate you watching. Subscribe, because I love watching that number go up. Keeps me alive. Keeps the channel going, and I appreciate everyone that has subscribed. We're quickly approaching 200 subscribers. That's huge. I never imagined it would get like this. So thank you, everyone. Hope everyone has a great day. Hope your agents have a terrible time. Thanks.